Urban Media Today talks sports with Ray Porter Jr., Vince Butts, and Trevin A. Jones on Urban Media Today Radio.
It's game time! Urban Media Today talks sports. Everybody else on here you know. I only have to introduce one person, and that's Howard University head football coach Larry Scott Jr. Okay, Larry Scott Jr. I'm gonna say it again. If you didn't see his press conference when he first came to Howard, I think that was back in February. It was announced like February 6th, 2020. Okay, so Coach C, I even know the date. February 6th, 2020. When he made his speech, I mean, it was so deep. You could actually feel your words, Coach. And I watched it on video. I wasn't there. I wanted to be. And I had to say kudos to you and thank you, because you could feel it. Like, you could feel the involvement. You could feel the dedication. You could feel that, okay, I'm a man on a mission. We're going to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Speaking about missions, this season, there will be no football season during the fall. How are you handling that? I know you spoke about it earlier, but like, as this is your first year, like, how are you as a head coach at Howard? How are you, not the players, how are you taking that in and I guess planning it out as you move forward?
I'll tell you what, I think it's really too, after today, this afternoon on Thursday, hearing the announcement, you have to give yourself some time to process it all, right? Too quickly, we jump to conclusions, or we jump to, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes it's okay to go pause, hit the pause button here for a second, collect our thoughts, look at the environment that we're in, and all the variables that came into why that decision was made, so that we can effectively move forward. It's not sometimes good enough to just start moving forward if what you're doing isn't in an effective manner. So, like, I met with, first thing I did once I got the announcement, I called an emergency meeting with our staff, because as leaders of men, they needed to hear the word from me, exactly what was going on. They didn't need to read it. They didn't need to process it or interpret it any other different way other than what it is right now for us. And then the same thing, in the same breath, while we were on a meeting, our kids were waiting on a Zoom, and I got on and jumped on and gave the young men the same word. Okay, because at the end of the day, if you're truly going to say your family and all those type of things, we need to have family meetings. And that's exactly what we did in the confines of our virtual space right now that we're having to create amongst everything that's going on with COVID and all those different things. So because I didn't want them to pick it up and read it. I didn't want them to read somebody's interpretation of what that means on Twitter. I wanted them to hear it exactly from me, as I got it from our AD and our administration. And at that point, it was again, we talk about core value number one, being honest. So with our kids, I always want to be honest and transparent. And with our coaches, and that's exactly what we did. And I told everybody, I said, this is what we're going to do, man. We're all here for you. Our coaches are here for you, young people. We need you. Our sports psychologist is here for you. Everybody that's here for you, because we don't understand sometimes how that affects the psyche and the mentality of the young people. And we have to keep that in mind as leaders of men. We can't get caught up in our feelings and what that means for us necessarily when we lead people. You have to start with the people and then work yourself back to yourself. And that's why it was important for me to give them that information, let those young people know that we're here for them, and then push pause. Hey, listen, it's Thursday. I want you guys to take Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll reconvene on Monday evening. We'll have a team and parent meeting. We'll have our AD and our constituents and our leadership all on the call, so that we can direct and guide our team and our parents. And then as coaches, we'll give us some time to kind of devise, okay, what's next as a head football coach? Okay, now we have a resolute decision being made. Now let's start to put together what that plan looks like in the midst of what the future can hold for us. Because we got to keep the program moving. And we got to let these young people know that we're still here. We ain't lost our lust. We ain't lost our love. We ain't lost our energy. We ain't lost our passion. We haven't lost any of it. We're still going to be on them the way that we've been on them. We're still going to talk to them. We're still going to host them. We're going to still keep them engaged into the total, our total development of what that means. Now, what that gives us the creativity to do and what's fun for me is, okay, now let's shift gears. At a time and a moment in a life, and I've been coaching college football for 17 years. And now it gives 16 years, including high school. But it gives me an opportunity now to take a time that I've never really had to do it differently to ultimately get to the same outcome. So how do we creatively do that? How do we think out of the box? How do we continue to keep these young men engaged and it gives us a creative moment and a creative time to do that, which for a football coach should be fun. Of a leader of an organization of people should be fun. It should be intriguing to say, okay, here, now I got to do something that I've never done. Okay, I've never had to do. So how do we do it? And creatively keep them engaged and keep them wanting to compete. Well, the one thing I told our coaches is we're not going to let them out in the field and let them run. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep them all together. We're going to keep them united, and we're going to keep them engaged into process. And we're going to use the human element of what real life is right now to teach them about life. Sometimes things don't just go your way the way that they're supposed to go, but what do? You put both feet down on the ground and you regroup and you reconnect, and then we start in a different direction. But at the end of the day, as long as we're doing it all together, and we all got, we use an analogy in our program, we all got both hands on that rope and we're all aligned and we're pulling in the same direction. There's no limit to where we can go. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to push pause, regroup here, get to a resolute decision as to what our president decides for our own class situation, whether that's going to be online or whether we're going to do a hybrid schedule and have some guys back and have students back. And then we're going to put together a world-class plan that I tell them we're Howard. We are Howard University. Have great pride in what that represents. We represent a great brand, a brand that's synonymous with excellence. And what this does is gives us a chance to set the trend again for what it is to be a Howard student, to be a Howard organization. And I want people to come back 3-4 weeks from now and go, what are you doing with that football organization that those kids have that kind of juice, that kind of energy? They're thriving in the classroom. They're thriving as people. We can put together now our community outreach groups that we've been talking so hard about through this pandemic about how we can spark the change and be the change within our football team, not football-wise, but all of the gaps and different things that we need to start in our community at Howard University to address and be out in front of as a spark plug for change. For all social injustice, or whether that's women's rights, or whether that's whatever it is that we need to come together on and be the spark for change. Now, look how God works. It gives us an opportunity to have the platform to really do that and affect change on our campus, which will inflict change in the community, which at the end of the day, I can connect and help them make the dots to what it is to be a winner. Because football games take care of themselves.
I just heard a whole bunch of parents just exhale like, whoo, you said parents, coach. I don't think I've heard coaches in the past, and I mean no disrespect to any coaches, but immediately you said, I got the young men on the phone and their parents. We're going to talk to their parents as well. That's big. Now, how did you come about that? Is that something that you've learned before, or is it just something that you're instilling in the program?
I'm a father. I'm a father. I look at it, how I talk to young men, how I address young men is how would I want a coach to address my son, even when he's wrong, even when he's doing well, and even when I look at it and how I coach and mentor our young people is the exact way that I would want to that I would try to handle it with my son. I would have the expectation of a man or a female or a person, anybody that I hand them over to my son to say mentor him, coach him, and develop him. Because at the end of the day, I hear it all the time. I've coached as many people as I coached and many programs as I coached. If I say something to my son, okay, it's like, okay, Dad, I got it. But if, his coach Fuller, say the same thing, oh, it is gospel because Coach Fuller said it. It's the same thing I've been saying to you for weeks, son. And my wife should turn and look at me and shake her head and be like, the power of a coach. And I said, you know what? That is a very, very, very true thing, son. I think I'm going to always keep that in the forefront of every decision that I make is that I'm a father first, and how can I really impact these people well, and sometimes that means being a father that stands in the gap of fathers that they don't have. So that you got to remember too that we have that expectation and responsibility as well as coaches.
Awesome.
Hey, Coach,
we run out of time and get to our segment, I'm going to go to Coach Hoyd. I was coming to you next, Coach. We go to Coach Hoyd and then Keith and then Ray with a question. And then we got a segment, Coach, where we go around the room to close out the show. And we've talked about something that just was prevalent to us this past week, and we just want to share it. So, go ahead, Coach Hoyd.
Well, being a dad, a Howard dad, had 2 Howard grads. So you got alumni all around, all around the country. The Howard Alumni Network is incredible, whether it's in Texas, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Cali, whether you're in Florida. What would you tell like the Howard alums or the alumni associations that where you are, what you need. Because, of course, you know, I know programs. I mean, I played at Ole Miss. I know what the big programs have, and I know what Howard has. I know what the HBCUs have. I know what the SWAC has. So what can the alumni, what can the Howard Alumni Associations or Howard alumni, period, do, or do you have any requests that you need support in?
Very simply, come home. It ain't much harder than that. Whether that just come home. At the end of the day, it's enough for us to walk around with our sweatshirts on or our hoodies and post our degrees on the wall and all of those things. But sometimes when mama come calling, you know, sometimes it's just time to come home. And right now, through everything, all of the social injustice, the culture of this country, and you know, the pandemic, and you know, having to suspend sports and having to do all of those type of things, I think it's just time. It's a calling. I think it's a calling for everybody to say, hey, you know what, just come home. And sometimes when you come home, you know, the whole call is, right, come home and we'll figure it out as a family. What we need to do, what are the next steps, what do we got to do? Because it's not only affecting athletics. And that's the one thing that, you know, I realize about being a bigger part of the whole, that is the brand that is Howard. There's going to be a lot of needs at Howard right now. And it's not just going to be athletics, it's going to be across the board. To help, you know, so that this brand can now stand on the shoulders of the people that they stand on all the time. They stand on the brand. Right now, the brand needs to be upheld by all those people you talked about, all the alumni, all the figures. So I would say that the call right now is mama's calling. There's some time of strife, and we need you to come home.
Keith Flatt Jr., go ahead.
So, being that the season's not going to happen, so what's going to, are you going to start recruiting? You going to start recruiting over again? Like, how's that going to work?
No, we started recruiting the day I set my foot down here in DC. The minute I got off the plane, I started calling as many people as I know about Howard University, and that's what I was, and that's what we were going to do. Like I said, even when the pandemic happened, we sat down as a staff and we came up with the ultimate plan. The one thing we're going to do is recruit like a machine. I come from places where recruiting is the absolute lifeblood of what you do, how you do it. And once you got the parameters on which you can do it within, you know, our academic standards and the profile that is Howard. Once we did that, we put our feet down on the ground and we went to work. Assigned areas to coaches, kind of like what the coach you were talking about. We got a guy in the West Coast, we got a guy in Texas, got a guy in the Detroit area, got a couple guys in the New York, New Jersey area. We're all in the DMV. Every coach has a little bit of the piece of the DMV, and through the Carolinas, through Georgia and down to Florida. I mean, I really want to recruit our footprint of what the MEAC and Howard University is, and then you know, throughout the Midwest or throughout wherever we can stick our, you know, teeth into something where there's connections and people and things that we can rely on, as kind of like what Coach Hoy was talking about a little bit, is that third party. Sometimes it's not always a third party service. Sometimes that's a coach. Sometimes that's a community member. Sometimes that's a whatever that is becomes that third party for us. And we're going to use that because Howard has a powerful brand. So, no, we're not going to change our recruiting. One of the most fortunate things we have going on right now in the midst of a pandemic, like I said, we have 15 commitments. Had 4 happen yesterday, and we got 1 more that's going to happen tomorrow, where a kid's going to, you know, commit to us tomorrow. We'll be sitting there at, you know, 15 commitments during this time. And I'd much rather be sitting in the situation that we're sitting in. And when we went back and looked at our recruiting boards this morning, you know, every kid that we've taken have all been within the top 4 to 5 guys on each stack on our list as the best players that we were taking order from top to bottom. Every one of them has been within the top 5. So we're hitting right now on our top 90% of the kids that we want that fit the profile academically, character-wise, and athletically in our program, because you got to be able to play now. You got to be able to play, you know, tackle football. And so we're making sure we get that done too, as far as bringing in guys that do that, but it has a great, you know, well-roundedness and understanding of what it means to come into this environment and thrive academically, athletically, and as well as socially. So no, we're not going to change that. Matter of fact, we're going to become even more of a machine. We're going to start dipping into 22. We're going to keep this thing going. Howard has a powerful brand, and it don't stop. And we're not going to let it slow down on our watch. So we're going to keep rolling.
Awesome. Ray Porter Jr.
What is one thing you like about the HBCU experience?
I tell you what, here's what's great about that question, because it's a feeling. it's not necessarily a word. It's the feeling that you get every time you walk down Georgia Avenue, right? And you see the flags, you see the signs, you see the buildings. You walk down the hill, right? And you see the yard to your left, the cathedral and the administration building. You walk by the Starbucks right there, right before the access. And then you walk down the street where you see some of the newer dorms and all. It's the feeling of, you talked about it a little while ago of what that family and that home feeling is. You feel like, you know what? Anybody who puts their feet down here are going to get this feeling, and they're going to feel like they're on the hill and they can make it, and nothing's going to stop them from making it. So I can't say that it's a word, because in the end of the day, what it makes you feel is far more lasting than any definitional word or any word in the dictionary that you can give it. It's the feeling that you come away from, and the feeling that you have when you walk away from it, feeling that golly, it's Howard. So that's the feeling, that's the emotion, especially for me. You read about it and you hear about it as a kid. When I came to the interview, it was like, man, the Mecca, the Hill, Howard, the real HU, just all of those things. And it's just like, and it's just totally it's totally the feeling and how you walk away from it feeling and how you feel working here. And then you walk around and feel the pulse of DC, man. And it's like, golly, does it get any better, really, at the end of the day?
That's awesome. I can vouch for that. All right, gentlemen, this is the part of the show where we're going to go around the room real quick to wrap up the show. You're going to talk about something that was prominent, stood out to you this week. It doesn't have to be sports related, but it can be. And Coach Hoyd, we're going to start with you. What you got, Coach?
Coach got me speechless, because I remember that feeling, coming to Howard. So dropping my kids off, I was like, whoa, I wish I had him here instead of Ole Miss. But again, I mean, I'm glad I had my children, my kids, my son. He was a grad transfer. I'm glad they experienced that. But again, this week, seeing what happened with Nick Cannon, it's tough to see that the back and forth he went with Viacom, and just to see that Fox retained him for the #1 show on TV, which is The Masked Singer. It's tough, man, because we believe we have the freedom of speech and we can say certain things, but again, we understand that there's a systemic racism. It's there, it's real, and we just need to be a little bit more conscious, have some good people in our corner to kind of move forward. That's it.
No doubt. Keith Platt Jr., what you got, man?
I want to say shout out to the TBT. That's the basketball tournament. Nobody thought we could have live basketball. They put it on from July 4th to July 14th inside the bubble in Columbus, Ohio. There was no testing. Everybody tested positive, got sent home. There were no outbreaks in the bubble. So that shows you that you can have live basketball if you follow the right protocol. They don't got half the sources the NBA got, and they pulled it off. So big up to them, and shout out to the Marquette boys for winning that thing. So that just goes to show you, though, you can have live basketball if you follow the right protocol. Shout out to the TBT.
Can't get nothing by Keith Platt Jr., boy. He's paying attention. I'm telling you. Ray Porter Jr., what you got, Ray?
I love it.
Earlier this week, happened to come into one of the rooms in the house, and my wife had a movie on, and it was actually the first Captain America for all the Marvel fans. And they were showing him when he was fighting in the war, and he had a crew behind him. I believe they were called the Howling Commandos. And one of them was an actor, the actor, Derek Luke. He was in there. He was the only African-American one in there. And he said something that, you know how when you watch a movie over and over again, but then you get something out of it each time. And he had said something that stood out to me, and he said, I came from Howard, and et cetera, et cetera. And I froze the television like, whoa, I didn't realize it was in there. So I have to say kudos to the Howard University shout out reference popular culture. The standard is the standard with the school. So I didn't get a chance to go to HBCU, but I love it, and I was very proud. So that was
awesome
to each of you, especially Coach Scott,
no
brother Derek, and Coach Hoyd. Sorry.
And before we get to Coach, Coach Scott. We're going to go to Derek Bryant. Derek, I know you've been listening. Man, you're an important dude at Howard University with the sports information, you and Herman making things happen. Anything that stood out on your mind this week that you just want to share?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I know we talked about it. You guys talked about it on the show in terms of the, cancellation of fall sports and so forth. But, it's, I think this is, like I said, Coach Scott said, this is a time to, be creative. And also at the same time, this COVID is real. And Trev, I think we've talked about it a couple times. Back in March, we thought that by the time the fall comes back around, it will be, we'll be back. So my message is everybody just still be safe out there. Follow the protocols, wear a mask, because as soon as we do all that, we will be back on the field, Coach. So that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. So, but yeah, so that's my 2 cents there.
That's my man, Derek Bryant, DB, Sports Information at Howard University. And then last but not least, our guest today, Coach Larry Scott Jr. Got to throw that in there. Head coach, Howard University of Football. Coach, what stood out this week? I mean, it could be many things for you, but
Yeah.
what particular?
I think honestly, it was this afternoon after the announcement and all those things. First of all, just a response of how resilient young people really are, and their response to what was really going on, and because we've had such a really good philosophy and systematic way for them to deal with the pandemic and what's been going on, for them to respond the way that they did was really good. And then to really, at the end of the day, for me as a leader of our football program, to go on and watch the leader of our university, our president, go on the MEAC call this afternoon in the press conference and lead the charge for all of the presidents and all of the ADs and everybody else that's in the MEAC conference, to have our leader be on that call and lead that call and be out in front of the decision that was made in conjunction with the whole conference, but him to be the leader that's out there speaking about where the conference is, where we're going, and the decision that was made. For me, being the leader of the program, to watch our leader be out in front of that from an athletic standpoint in the MEAC conference at our great academic institution, just shows the excellence in the brand that is Howard. For him to be out in front of that, speaking as a representative of Howard University, but to be the chair of the board of the MEAC conference, athletic conference, in that realm was awesome to see the leadership from our president and from the person that employed me here and hired me here to go on that call and dealing with the media and dealing with the whole conference and be the face of not only the conference, but be the great representative of Howard University that he is, was awesome. And with that type of leadership, it inspires. It gives you an opportunity to understand that, to have our leader doing that for us and be the leader of the football coach of a sport that's suspended. To be on there and understand the direction of the program was awesome for me, because at the end of the day, it's about alignment and what we do and how we do things. And to know I'm falling right in the line and under that umbrella of great leadership like that inspires you, and it gives you the mindset and the mentality and the positive energy and juice and passion you need to continue to build a program. So for me, that was really inspiring and changing during this time. So that was it, man. It happened this afternoon. That was a really good question, by the way, because it forced thought. And anytime you can ask people a question on the spot that allows them to have to think, I think that's when you get truly spontaneous answers and you get to the truth of it all. So that was awesome.
You're awesome, Coach. This show was awesome. And I got to say, it's not about me, so I'm not going to talk a lot because you all know I can talk. But we'll end it there. It's Urban Media Today Talk Sports. I want to thank my guest, Coach Greg Hoy Jr., playing for Envelopes. Keith Flatt Jr., who's always here, the youngin'. You know him. Always can't get nothing past Keith. And you got Ray Porter Jr., my man Derek Bryant, and head coach of Howard University football, Coach Larry Scott Jr. Good luck to you, Coach. Whatever you need, we're here for you. Just make big things happen, and we appreciate you.
I'm sure we will, man. I appreciate being on the show, man. A great show tonight.
Urban Media Today talks sports every week on Urban Media Today Radio, where you can listen in on free music and podcasts on our SoundCloud station at Urban Media Today. And for more information, log on to urbanmediatoday.com, your lifestyle, entertainment, and sports blog website.
What type of games being played? How's it going down? I get up, all right?